So have you just seen that Liverpool have just signed? Well, it's done. Isak to Liverpool, 130 million. God, what a brave little club, Dan, aren't they? How do they compete?
How do they compete? I mean, it's scandalous, really, that you get all these new clubs coming in with all this money that don't deserve to be there, and plucky little Liverpool, who have real history, real tradition, real class. Just they just can't compete. It's just ridiculous. It's a real shame on football. I wonder if the problem was football even being professionalized in the first place. I think that was the moment everything started to go wrong. I really miss the days of the 70s and 80s when I wasn't even alive. That was really the peak of football.
I mean, some people will definitely argue the case of Chelsea fans as well. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to see what's happening with Liverpool. Looking at the numbers, right? 130 million on Isak, 115 million on Verts, 79 million on Ekatike, 40 million on Kirkers, 29.5 million on Frimpong, technically. 26 million on Leone. And I forgot as well, someone mentioned it to me as well, that Marmad, I can't say his name, the Georgian goalkeeper. I'm not
Mamardashvili.
Thank you. Mamardashvili, who also cost about 30, doesn't he, as well? So 450 million quid. Imagine that. God, must be nice. Have they sold anybody? Like they've sold Nunez and they've sold
Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa's one that they
Kwanzaa
definitely sold to Bayer Leverkusen. They might still sell Harvey Elliott to Leipzig. So I just want to say this, but if the rare chance that Liverpool fan is listening to this or watching this, which they probably aren't. Yes, we know we support a club that spends a lot of money, and we're also a podcast that has criticised our own club for spending money or spending it stupidly. My frustration and kind of my sarcasm and sneering at times is not really aimed at Liverpool fans. It's aimed at hypocritical media that has one set of rules for one club and another set of rules for another club, and that's it really. But I think Liverpool have to win the league. And I expect to see a spend graph on Sky Sports after the international break, because they do it for every other club. So just because it's your favourite club now, you should stay consistent.
It's true. And let's see if they do. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of that develops. But we are not here to talk about Liverpool. We are not here to talk about Alexander Isak, because unfortunately he will not be in a blue shirt, which would have been absolutely lovely given the situation we are about to discuss, which is Nico Jackson. Now, it is deadline day as we record this. You're getting this on deadline day. It's going to go out pretty much straight away. Dan and I wanted to see how the weekend developed with Nico Jackson rather than jump straight in at the deep end and sort of scream into the abyss while everything was kind of still unfolding, because it has been quite an interesting situation. So if we just do a quick timeline, we'll do it this way. So me and Dan at Stamford Bridge watched Chelsea beat Fulham 2-0 in a very, won't say deserved because it wasn't, victory. But we got 3 points, so that's what matters. We then also come out and there's an apparent gunman. Turns out it's just a guy who was actually coming from Comic-Con but decided to walk through a very crowded area in full body armor with a toy gun. That probably didn't go down too well, which meant I missed my curry because I had a nice curry, but in Tunbridge Wells, the guys from Barbershop didn't get it. And then, lo and behold, straight after that, sat in the pub with Alex Goldberg, Nico Jackson is told to come back to Chelsea after Lindelof could be out for 8 weeks, maybe more. So that happened, and we're looking at this going, that's interesting. See how this goes down. Fine, makes sense. A few moments later, Nico Jackson's agent says the plane doesn't go backwards and that he is staying in Munich. So then there's a whole thing happening there. And after that, Chelsea say buy him or have the obligation to buy Munich if you really believe in him. They clearly don't believe in him that much. So they pull out of the deal. And lo and behold, Nico Jackson and his agent on a plane that's going backwards with Air Lufthansa. So that's what's happened here. How do you feel about it? What do you think of this situation? because I have a few choice thoughts and words, but I kind of want to see where your head's at right now.
I'm very happy if the window closes literally now and Jackson is still a Chelsea player. I'm very happy. I
Mm-hmm.
probably celebrated the news that Chelsea had cancelled the loan as much as any of the goals scored on Saturday, to be honest, because it was just obvious that it needed to happen. And
Yeah.
I've made my defense of Jackson multiple times throughout this summer, and it should have never even got to this stage in the first place, that he was even on a plane to Munich. Even, even if Delap hadn't have got injured, I still would have looked at letting Jackson go as at least maybe not a red flag, but maybe an orange flag, like something in the window that I could see. Well, that's something we're going to have to see over the course of the season, whether that's something that comes back to bite Chelsea. Now, this is the problem as content creators with the transfer window, and I'm not a fan of transfer deadline day. Just full stop. I don't like, and also when you're making content, you always feel wary of saying things because in a matter of hours they can be flipped up and turn upside down and positive or negative reality changes, right? But where we stand right now, I think it's a good position. Now, there are further questions about how Jackson returns to Chelsea, how he is reintegrated into this group, but it absolutely is the correct call. And it also is the more preferable call to bring back a player and has worked at Chelsea, rather than rushing out to sign someone permanently who you clearly had no intention of doing so before 12:30 on Saturday. That is not coherent squad planning. That's not good transfer strategy. So yeah, I feel like you're maybe conflict, and I'm just kind of guessing that it probably has something to do with Jackson's behaviour in this, and maybe I will have a different point of view on that as well. So yeah, I'll hear you with you. But yeah, on just like the mechanics of the deal and what it could mean for Chelsea on the pitch, I'm happy.
I agree, but I'm worried that the actions off the pitch are going to impact on the pitch. So for me, I'm in the same boat as you. I thought when Nicolas Jackson was going to Bayern Munich, I put a tweet out in the morning on Saturday where I basically said, look, like Nicolas Jackson has been, a good player for Chelsea. Only player since Tammy to score double goals as a striker in a season. Pulled on the number 9 shirt when he wasn't expected to. Shouldered that burden in his first season. Did okay. Got better. And I think would be a very, very valuable squad player. Obviously, that went the way it did. People disagreed, people agreed, people weren't sure, yada, 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 whatever, right? My issue was when it came down to Sunday and his agent was talking a lot and Nicolas Jackson wasn't going to want to come back to Chelsea. What worries me is how that mentality then retransitions itself back into the squad. And how that's going to look to the rest of the players in the team, and how he is basically. I'm looking at this with an even playing field, right? I looked at this the same way as Alexander Isak in Newcastle. I know it's a slightly different situation, but bear with me, right? We were criticising on Fresco Alexander Isak and his actions, saying, "Look, you are signed to the club, completely signed to the club. You have a contract. You fulfill that contract, you do your job." It's like if me and you decided to down tools at our work. Oh well, we've had someone approach us with a new offer. We're just going to down tools and stop doing it. Like I know it's a different situation with footballers, but it also isn't that different because you're under contract. You're growing up. You're a grown ass man and under contract, and you should be doing your job, right? However, caveat: I appreciate he's basically been told he was surplus to requirement. He was put into a bomb squad, which me and you both said is always a danger. And this is a prime example of why this is a danger. And then he's kind of had to fight through this mess from, let's be honest, because he is perennially online as well. Of Chelsea fans who were, calling for his head after a red card in the end of this at the end of the season, and in the Club World Cup as well. So, he's in an awkward position, definitely, and I understand why he has done it. I just disagree with it. I think that the fact he's just down tools and gone, I just don't want to do it anymore. It's not worth my time. X, Y, and Z. You're not treating me well, whatever. If you were doing something for free, right, and it was someone treating you like a full-time employee, especially which you and I have been in both with the creative industry, where you're treated like a full-time employee and they expect you to do all these things and yada yada yada. Yeah, if you were to down tools, then fine, but you're not. You're being paid 6 figures a week. So, excuse me, Nicholas, if I think that you should be doing your job and turning up and cracking on with things.
I agree with a lot of that. Like, I think that my expectation is that Jackson returns, and if he returns and he doesn't, there's no other shenanigans on transfer deadline day, and he remains a Chelsea player, I fully expect him to act like a professional and do his utmost, which I think he can, because he's got the ability and talent to do so, to re-establish himself in the first team. But I also made the point on my show when I was talking about this that not everyone is a Trev. Not everyone has that kind of ability to rise to adversity over and over and over again, and also has a clear lifelong probably dedication to this club and love of Chelsea. That Chalobah has, it's a fair comparison to make that Trev could, that Nicholas Jackson could be this year's Trevor Chalobah, in the sense that, a guy who was kind of thrown out, returns, becomes actually a massive and integral player once again because of circumstances out of his control. So I'm not suggesting that he comes back and if he throws a strop and he can't be asked to play seriously when he gets an opportunity under Maresca, that I'm going to be happy about that. I'm not. However, I do think this is the collateral damage of Chelsea's transfer policy. Yes, I've seen it said, I think Jessica Frost said, yeah, technically he isn't quite in the bomb squad that, say, Axel Disasi, Raheem Sterling and Ben Chilwell is. But let's be honest, he's not. It's been quite clear to everyone for quite a while now that his future seemed to not be at the club anymore. He wouldn't have been in match day squads. And that for me is always you can say what you want, but if a player has no future at your club, you're making that abundantly clear to everyone. On Saturday, he could have had a striker on the bench called Nicolas Jackson. We've seen it in football. We see it in football all the time where a player who maybe doesn't quite have a future at the club remains in your squad, but then still makes a move elsewhere. Like Tyreek George, for instance, could be on his way to Roma as we speak. So it's not that you can't do it. So they'd made it clear. And you've been thrown out, you've based on your results, I think probably he's been a success at Chelsea. He's put up at least 10 Premier League goals in his first 2 years as a young striker, a developing striker under a very harsh spotlight. He gets this chance to move to Bayern Munich, which is a huge move in his career. Yes, it would have only been a loan, maybe with some option or obligation to buy, but to play at the Allianz, to play in the Bundesliga, to maybe prove everyone wrong that you are good enough to play at an elite club, which is what Bayern Munich are, a huge club. And then you get all this way, and then you're told the club that basically had no interest in you is now recalling you. This is the thing that I have sympathy with players on, or at least just a broader look that I think clubs are as bad as players. I do not think there are innocent parties in the transfer window a lot of the time. I think people like to paint the sole bad menace of a footballer who's the selfish, greedy millionaire who just wants to take all the money he can. But both of you and I know that football clubs can be as cynical and as ruthless when they have players they don't want anymore, when they have head coaches they don't want anymore, when they have young players they don't want anymore, that they will treat very disposably. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for the club in this aspect, because you've decided to go on a transfer policy that treats players, they're not a part of the first team. They're kind of in this separate limbo kind of space where they have to figure out what they're doing. And for Chilwell and Sterling, that has been the case for at least over a year now. So this is the collateral damage you have. And I also think of Jackson as a character, as someone who, he came to Chelsea without a lot of senior football under his belt. Like he did not have tons of. In some ways, he's similar to the Mudryk situation. You know, the difference being is that one of those acclimatized a lot better to their surroundings than the other, and actually proved that I think, Jackson, I think, has a lot more about him as a footballer. He has a lot more intelligence, I think, on the pitch. I mean that in terms of he just adapted to his surroundings better. But he walks into Chelsea, not with a lot of expectation around him at all. I remember even the likes of, and I respect him a lot, but even Matt Law was like, why are Chelsea making the signing? Like, this is not what they need. Nkunku was supposed to be the big player. Nkunku gets injured, and then suddenly all of this spotlight goes on to Jackson that a few months ago at Villarreal, he was under. I'm not saying that no one cares about Villarreal. Obviously, their fans care.
No, but he wasn't under the same scrutiny.
It's not comparable. And he suddenly expected to perform like an 80 million striker. And he had to have these really awkward moments in front of the world as a developing striker. And I sort of look at him as a young player, as probably a young person, and think a bit like Mudryk, a bit like a lot of these players that struggle at Chelsea. I think you probably needed a middle move. You needed after Villarreal, and of course Jackson had a medical at Bournemouth the January before we signed him. So his career could have gone in a very different direction. That is not to say that he has no accountability for the decision making. He's, we both, you and I, have sat here and rightly criticized him for the stupidity of the Newcastle red card and the stupidity of the Flamengo red card. Both those were selfish, irresponsible, bad judgments that cost his team and could have cost his team, in the case of Newcastle, a hell of a lot more last season. Luckily, he didn't. And in some ways, he redeemed himself in Rocklaw. However, he is a young guy that I think has been thrown into this whirlwind. And as you say, probably like with other young footballers, is online, who takes in a lot of this stuff and a lot of the discourse. You have to factor in the agent, but you also have to factor in that the agent sometimes is only doing what is instructed of them by the player. Like, I think that's another thing that's stereotyped, is that the agents are kind of malicious actors on their own. You can find examples of that, but they're also, you got to understand that sometimes it's also the player. They're acting on the player's behalf of what the player wants to happen. So I don't think there's a lot of innocent parties, and there's no one here walking out squeaky clean. But what needs to happen right now, if Jackson is going to remain a Chelsea player, is Enzo Maresca needs to have a conversation with him. There needs to be an understanding that both parties have probably done wrong in this situation. And even if it's a short-term fix, it needs to be a workable fix. Because for Chelsea, for Jackson's own career, it's not going to look great on Jackson if he returns, can't be asked, Maresca doesn't play him. It becomes an awkward situation, and someone else will take that opportunity from him. So, that's why Trev's my favorite player in the current squad, because he has taken, every obstacle thrown in his way and every disrespect, and taken it as a challenge and proven himself over and over again. There is a chance for Jackson to reintegrate and remind everyone why he should be Chelsea's number one striker, because João Pedro is now playing kind of this number 10 role. And with Champions League games coming up where he has a chance to play at a higher stage than he ever has before. And I was saying to someone as well, like, it's a bit like the Madueke situation. I know Madueke played for Arsenal in against Liverpool, and because of Saka's injury, may actually start playing a lot more.
Did he?
But I think Jackson has more chance to play football at Chelsea than he does at Bayern Munich, because if Harry Kane's fit, Harry Kane plays every single week, and if Bukayo Saka's fit, Bukayo Saka plays every single week. So if you're Nicholas Jackson, even with a fit Delap, I still back Jackson that he can get minutes in front of, because I think Jackson's further ahead in his development than Liam Delap. So it's a real complex one. And I don't know. I hope it can be resolved, because Mark Gu's not the centre forward replacement. And why would Chelsea go through all the hassle of recalling Jackson, all of this anger and frustration from the Jackson side, to just sell him on deadline day? I don't really understand it. Like,
I was thinking the same thing, but then the reality is, think about who we're talking about here.
Well, they clearly made that initial decision based off of what happened in the Fulham game. This would have never happened if Liam Delap hadn't have got injured. Let's be honest about it. Like, it's not a situation where they've gone, we're going to recall him. See, I think the Gu one's slightly different. My theory is they've because I think it's Brobby, is it, that Sunderland have just bought? I think they've recalled Guiu because they realised, as was clear before the loan even went through, this was a bad loan move for this young player. This is not the place he should be. He should be in a championship. He should be at a club where he is going to be guaranteed minutes more frequently. Guiu should have never gone to a Premier League club. I think that is more of a financial, or a not really a financial, but like that's a different calculation. I don't think Guiu's coming back because of Delap. I think that you made that Jackson call because of what happened on the pitch, not what happened off the pitch. So yeah, it's. I just hope that Chelsea need to realise that the decision they made on Saturday was the correct one. And even if Newcastle or Aston Villa rock up with like 80 million, you no longer have the privilege of taking that money, because what you do if you do take that money is you are risking Chelsea's. I'm going to go as far as say you're risking Chelsea's success this season.
Be interesting to see how it all develops. I mean, I've see Dan and I are friends with a lot of people within the industry, and I've heard some rumblings about some very interesting transfers, which I cannot elaborate on right now. But I don't think it would cost. Should those transfers happen, I don't think it would cost Chelsea that much this window. However, as Dan has rightfully pointed out, deadline day and the days leading up to deadline day are some of the fastest moving and some of the biggest headaches. Excuse me, some of the biggest headaches for content creators, journalists, football clubs, because you have no idea what is going to happen. So, I mean, should they not go through, I absolutely agree with you that it's going to be a problem for Chelsea if they were to solely rely on Mark Guiu, because that is just not something which can be trusted. He's another player who's way behind his development. He needs that championship loan. I could see him at Sheffield United. I could see him at Wrexham. I could see him like any of these clubs which are really in need of need a striker. I think Wrexham do need a striker personally. But it'll be interesting to see how all that develops. But I mean, look, like Nicholas Jackson is back in the squad. Hopefully, it is currently 5 to 10 on Monday, the 1st of September. So we don't know 100% if he is yet. But he should be about. We'll see how it all develops. As Dan and I will be keeping tabs on it throughout the rest of deadline day. We will be doing a show tomorrow, Dan and I, where we'll be giving you the transfer and our thoughts on the window, as we did last year as well. And I'm sure that the score will be live on X to go through the window right up to deadline day, or up to the deadline. And we'll try and get some people involved there with us as well. But anyway, those are our quick thoughts on Nicholas Jackson. It's going to be very interesting to see how it all develops with him over the next several hours. And of course, into the season, should he remain a Chelsea player. But this has been the Chelsea Echo. If you have enjoyed this, please make sure you give us a 5-star review if you're listening to this on Spotify or on any of your podcasting platforms. If you're watching on Spotify or watching on YouTube, make sure you leave a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on Nicholas Jackson. Should he have maybe been a little bit mature in the situation, or are you thinking like Dan, thinking that everyone has a little bit of dirt on their face? If you are watching on YouTube, drop a like, subscribe, head across to Dan's channel as well, and we will see you later. Ta-da.